What's going on, everybody? It's me, Brandon, back again with another episode, and today we are talking about the Persona games, the Persona Japanese role-playing games. I love Persona 3 and Persona 4 Golden. They are two seminal, incredible games that I've played in my life so far that have stuck with me. We had Persona 3 Reload, a proper remake, done a couple years back, and I absolutely loved that game. And Persona 4 is also getting a remake in the near future. But there's also Persona 5 out there, which I also think is a wonderful game, but it didn't hit as much as these two. So let's go ahead and talk about my experience with growing old with Persona. The Persona Japanese role-playing game has been a series that I've been head over heels for since I was introduced to the series way back in the winter of 2012 after picking up my copy of Persona 4 Golden for the PlayStation Vita. This franchise has been a killer app, and most importantly, I think some of the games mentioned here today are key factors in my life regarding the old saying of right place, right time, and how massive of an impact these games have had on my soul. Persona is a franchise I think about quite often, and I think about where I place everything I've played and how I felt about the numbered entries I've played and their importance, not only in my video game love but also in assisting my actual life in ways I never would have expected. Persona has been in a weird spot for me recently, where I will always champion my love for Persona 3 and 4. These games felt like the perfect fix for me at that time of my life when I first got introduced to them. Persona 5, once it finally came out, I loved it, but the game felt like something different entirely compared to Persona 3 and 4, and it was excellent, but that feeling I'd compared to Persona 3 and 4 just does not feel tangible in Persona 5. My biggest thought on the Persona franchise lately is, do we age out of this game as we get older? Sure, we can always play the Persona games and feel free to, but I have to say I've always felt with Persona 5 that it was great, even amazing, but I could not personally connect to these characters the same way I did at the time I played Persona 3 and Persona 4 years prior. A part of me has been going under the belief that with Persona and its very limited release schedule for numbered entries, it certainly feels like the core first experience with whatever Persona game you play at first, you are tethered and connected to it, and that is one that you will feel the most attached to. When I first was introduced to Persona, I was a junior in high school, and it was the perfect time to get introduced to this franchise while still in high school. The Persona franchise came to me out of nowhere back in the day. I was first introduced to the series with Persona 4 Golden, an expanded version that came exclusively to the PlayStation Vita at the time. I remember looking up games for the recently acquired system, and that was one of the games that everyone seemed to recommend, especially since it was a fresh release for the system. I remember going out the day after Christmas to GameStop in search of only one thing, and it was Persona 4 Golden. Once I went home and I popped that cartridge right into the Vita, that's when it began, my affinity for this wonderful franchise. The screen was screaming with J-pop tunes and colors blasting all over the place, showing a small Japanese town of Inaba and its main characters, soon not realizing the massive impact of an experience I was about to embark on. Persona 4 Golden has cemented itself in my top 10 video games of all time thanks to this transformative game. Persona 4 in every way is not only a wonderful game, but it tackles the aspects of struggling to find your true self, and with the help of friends, you can overcome the odds together. In short, Persona 4 Golden changed my life. I was glued to my PlayStation Vita for hours upon hours every day, and when I finally got to the credits, I sat there in tears, not believing the journey I'd just gone on with these incredible characters with the help of friends you meet along the way. It was a journey I will never forget. After finishing Persona 4 Golden, there was a massive hole in not understanding what to play post-game. So I went back and dove into Persona 3, and then with that experience, I was left speechless. Persona 3 was a complete tonal shift from the happy, fun, and vibrant streets of Inaba and its inhabitants to a somber, dark, and depressing entry with Persona 3. Persona 3 again was something that found me at the absolute best time in my life, as well in tandem with Persona 4 Golden. Going through the motions of life and in high school, it can be rough, and I found that the themes in those two games to be so immense. I remember seeing the way a Persona user in Persona 3 summoned their persona, and it was none other than holding an evoker, which was a tool used to summon the persona, and they put it up to their head and pulled the trigger. The characters actually shoot themselves to summon their persona. Not only that, but the theme of Persona 3 is death. Every Persona since Persona 3 has had a color scheme and themes that drip into every stretch of the game. Persona 3 is blue, and you will see blue throughout the game in menus, accents, and showcases, also complementing the tone of the game. Persona 4 was friendship and had a yellow color scheme and a warmth to everything. And then Persona 5 was red, and the themes of that game were rebellion, and everything else was red, like menus and all that other stuff. Back to Persona 3. This game was a somber and darker story for sure, but the characters were written just like Persona 4 Golden. I was so happy there was more of this franchise, and I was experiencing more stories from these characters. Persona 3 may go down in my book as the best of the three games narratively, but Persona 4 was just a wonderful experience that first go around, to the point where I can't shake the feelings of the game ever. Persona 3 introduced me to a new cast of characters and introduced me to now one of my favorite video game characters, Junpei Iori. Junpei is a goofball who has so much heart, and over the course of the game, I latched onto this character, as I could genuinely see this character as a friend in real life. Persona has this wonderful way of making these fictional characters feel amazingly well written and real. Across the games, as you are doing your main quest, you can hang out with these characters, and the writing is exceptional. Some characters tell you about home life, current frustrations, and you can even hang out with these characters. It's amazing how deep these games go with the writing for each and every character. As I said earlier, playing Persona 3 and 4 in high school feels like a lifetime ago now, but these characters have stayed with me ever since, and I still fondly think about all those initial adventures in Persona 3 and 4. When Persona 5 came out, I was excited for it, but when I was already out of college and a completely different person at that point, only a few years removed from high school, but still, things were different. When Persona 5 finally came out, I was still excited to play it, and the game was wonderful, but I knew from the get-go once I hit the credits that this game did not hit for me like Persona 3 and Persona 4 did. To this day, I still feel the same way about the characters and experience of Persona 5. I see people championing it all day, and I applaud them, but again, to me, it just did not hit like the previous two games. I've seen this experience from a few people I know personally, where 5 charts in their top 10 or even their top 5 games of all time, so I was ultimately thinking about how there is this idea of playing that core Persona experience at a very specific time in your life, which can cement these games in their respective lists. I was messaging my friend Matt, and we were having a back and forth about this very topic, and in Matt's words, quote, "I think Persona exists in such a pocket that if you do not play it during a very formative time in your life, you will not instill that magic that makes this series so beloved. As we grow, we are more informed, and I think the coming of age stuff is more of a memory instead of when we were in the throes of it." End quote. When I think of Persona 4, I can see the cast being in parallel to where I was in high school, and Persona 3's cast being the grade above me, where they are still very important and still can be quote-unquote friends. But by the time I went into Persona 5, I saw them straight up as video game characters first. When I think about Persona 3 and 4, those characters had a strong impact on me. They hit me at such a formative age that they feel real. When Persona 5 came out in 2016, I was officially out of high school and in a completely different mindset. It had me wondering if when Persona 6 comes out, I will be further removed from the franchise now too. Persona 6 for me would feel so different, especially as a 30-something-year-old adult. I love the Persona franchise, but I do often wonder if Persona 3 and 4 were my games in the series, and everything else is just additional. As I say, I've always have conversations with friends and family about various video games and other topics, but this Persona one was something in particular. I loved thinking about how I wasn't as attached to this game and even the spin-offs of Persona in recent years. Outside of Persona 5 Strikers, back in the day, I was chomping at the bit for every P4 and P3 related spin-off game, whether that would be the fighting games, the dancing games, the Persona Q crossover games, and more. When we got around to Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and it was essentially the send-off for those characters, I remembered that being so hard to believe, but I loved closing that chapter on these amazing characters. Back in 2024, when we got the Persona 3 Reload remake, I was over the moon for that game, as I was reunited with some of my favorite characters in a definitive package. Persona 4 is getting the same treatment now too with Persona 4 Revival, which is great, but I feel like once we get to Persona 6, it will be a moment of reflection if I feel as attached to the IP as I once was. We get older and our interests change all the time, but with Persona, it felt like a wonderful checkpoint in my life of how important those two games were and how they actually helped me in life too. Persona 5, again, is a wonderful game and I will always recommend it, but my heart lies with Persona 3 and 4. Persona is the franchise that made me fall in love with JRPGs outside of Pokemon, especially on the go. I was amazed by the wonderful writing and the deep subject matter that each entry would tackle. The Persona franchise is the franchise that legitimized what a perfect handheld experience could be, and also has ruined me on what a long-ass video game can be. I love this franchise so much though, and the attention to detail with not only the wonderfully written characters, but the themes and settings all being a showcase within themselves is something I can truly not express enough. If you are looking to play a Persona game for the very first time, I will always recommend Persona 4 Golden. The characters all bounce off each other wonderfully, and the plot gets going quickly with murder mysteries to solve. Persona 3 will follow with the mature and dark themes present in that game, but the story is so layered and deep that the message delivered by the ending of the game is an everlasting impact of an amazing experience. Persona 5 simply oozes with style, and the characters are all, again, written well and have so much charm, but watch out, they may take your heart. I have also dived in a little bit of older Persona games, but they are something else entirely from the start of what Persona 3 was doing. They are still playable though, but I just haven't had enough time with Persona 1 or the 2 games. Persona reminds me of a time when I was younger and hopeful for a similar situation, a diverse group of friends that would be ride or die. Persona was a better experience than my actual high school experience, even though I still really enjoyed my time at high school, but I can understand where it can resonate with so many people. When I see Persona and I play Persona 3 through 5, I get reminded of the friends who I used to have, old memories and those moments I've had making friends over these very games. Times change and so do people, but these games each remind me of very specific pockets of time. Persona 3 was a follow-up to Persona 4, but the themes of death helped me focus and find that there is more to life than depression, and with friends, you can overcome some of your darkest days. Even when loss is present, we gain another day with the help of our friends and family. Persona 4 told me to be uniquely myself and work towards a future where I'm undoubtedly myself, and Persona 5 told me not to waste this life. Get up and get out there and be a change. In closing, Persona is a hallmark franchise for me, and it's funny to see over the years the Shin Megami Tensei title has slowly dissolved, and Persona kind of feels bigger than its original dubbed SMT Persona title. I love this franchise, and I implore anyone interested in the game to definitely check it out and see what you think. You may have a similar moment playing these games games, or you may feel different depending on when you dive into these games, but even if you are older and playing these games, I still think the depth in the writing can win you over easily. Persona is pure class, and I will never stop recommending it. The Persona franchise is beloved by so many people, whether it be the incredible soundtrack, the wonderful writing, the crazy art styles, just the awesome attention to detail in these games. I think that's what gets people to keep coming and trying each entry in the series. Persona is something I think about quite often, especially like I mentioned it countless times in the video, Persona 3 and Persona 4. I find that those two games, when I played those games in junior year of high school, they were just unlike anything I've ever experienced at that time. And still to this day, there's a lot of life lessons, not only in Persona 3 and 4, but Persona 5 as well. I think this series does so much for so many people, and it can't be overstated enough just how special it truly is. So please let me know in the comments down below what your favorite Persona game is. Where did you start out? When did you play these games? I'm very curious on your take if you've played it later in life, earlier in life. Please let me know in the comments down below. As always, my name is Brandon, and I will see you all next time.